Hi, thanks for checking out the video. My name is Jarrett. I'm the owner of a small bookkeeping firm based in Orlando, Florida. And I wanted to make a video today to go over one of the most helpful items, helpful tips I believe that I'm able to offer, which is to compare the bank transactions tab to the check register. So I certainly speak with and have spoken with a lot of new users of QuickBooks Online, and oftentimes there's so much going on in the software. There's so many features and so many bells and whistles that I find oftentimes either new bookkeepers, new accountants, someone who's just new to the QuickBooks Online software, or a business owner, they kind of don't sort of know where to begin. Sort of a good place for an orientation, and I would definitely point to the bank transactions tab. So here in QuickBooks Online, I'm just going to visit that bank transactions tab. It's October of 2025, and at the end of July, QuickBooks Online made some big changes to the dashboard. Sort of the user interface here, where different tabs and features are located. The bank transactions tab is now going to be here in the accounting tab here. So I'm just going to go to accounting, and that's going to automatically load the bank transactions tab. A lot of different areas in QuickBooks Online are also going to sort of jump the user to the QuickBooks Online bank transactions tab, just because there's a lot there's a lot of things going on in the bank transactions tab, and oftentimes the transactions will need to be recorded in the bank transactions tab before we can do other things in QuickBooks Online, making adjustments, reviewing reports, those sorts of common tasks. Okay, so this is the QuickBooks Online bank transactions tab. So what we have here is we have the transactions in the for review tab that have synced to QuickBooks Online from the checking account. So banking institutions, credit card, financial institutions, their security teams write the software that shares the data with third-party softwares, like third-party bookkeeping softwares, QuickBooks Online being the most common, the number one third-party bookkeeping software. So the banks and the credit cards and the companies and the financial institutions, they write the software that shares the transactions. It's after the fact data. It's sanitized. It's historical. So there's not a way to make transfers from one account to another, for example, in the QuickBooks Online software. But once a transfer occurs in a bank account, or once a credit card payment or an expense is recorded, or something's purchased, those transactions are going to automatically sync to the QuickBooks Online software. So that's what we have here. They're going to go to the for review tab. After they're reviewed, they're going to go to the categorize tab, and this third tab here is the excluded tab. So that's going to be for duplicates primarily. The last 3 to 4 years, it's less common to get duplicates, just as the software has gotten better over the years. Back in 2018, 2017 timeframe, pretty common to get some duplicates on a regular daily basis. But nowadays it's less common. So I'm just going to scroll down here and take a look at some of these transactions here. Common transactions, there's a match that's been found. So the difference between adding and matching is if we're adding a transaction, that means that the software hasn't seen the information before. If we're matching, for example, a deposit here, that just means we've entered a payment, or the software has, or a deposit has been entered in the payment form or the deposit form, and now the deposit has synced to the QuickBooks Online software. So it's recognizing the amount, the date, maybe it sees it's within a day or two or three of a deposit that was recorded in the software. Oftentimes it'll be the exact dollar amount. So if we match it, that's just gonna match those two pieces of information up, but it's not gonna record new information. Whereas if we add a transaction, that's gonna record something new. So the bank transactions tab is where the automation is really taking place. And now since the end of July, the AI, the artificial intelligence, is also being heavily implemented. For automation, the bank transactions tab is really just doing some basic, simple things. For example, I'm just going to click on a transaction here, and we'll see that the transaction is going to open and show us some additional detail. Down here at the very bottom of each transaction will be the bank detail. And what we'll see down here on this bottom line is going to be the same detailed information we would see on the bank statement or the credit card statement or another financial statement. Oftentimes it's going to have the name of the vendor, the name of the company that the transaction is associated with. And also it doesn't have on this transaction, but for common vendors like, I don't know, Home Depot or Lowe's or Walmart or McDonald's, it'll also typically have the name of the company, of the vendor, telephone number, and street address: 123 Main Street, 555-555-5555, the direct number. And there's a database that I'm sure QuickBooks has, and many bookkeeping softwares have, of all of those vendors. So the software will recognize if it's Home Depot, for example, in one state versus Home Depot in another state, just based on the address. Oftentimes it'll have the store number and telephone number. So that's the information that the software is using to automate the transactions. So that's the main benefit of the transactions tab, is that since 2018, 2017 timeframe, businesses and bookkeeping and accounting has been really able to have been heavily automated. Especially if there's a business or a bookkeeper or accountant that really is really accustomed to the automation software, the automation in the software. That's the main benefit of the bank transactions tab. And the other area that I want to review is going to be this bank register. So the register is a little bit different. So if we select here in the upper right hand corner, we'll see a link for bank register. Recently, some changes have been made, so that link may not be there depending on the updated version of QuickBooks Online that someone may be currently using. A lot of the changes don't get implemented to everybody's QuickBooks Online account equally. They sort of roll it out to different accounts. So we can select there. Another good way to visit the register is just to go to the chart of accounts. The register will always be in the chart of accounts. And then you'll see your bank accounts, your credit card accounts, and there'll always be a register right there. So oftentimes I'll just, if that link isn't there, you can just visit the chart of accounts and then find your bank or credit card or savings account and just go right to the register from there. So the register is a bit different. So for anyone who used QuickBooks Desktop for many years, I've certainly had more conversations than I can recall for business owners who used QuickBooks Desktop for 20, 25, 30 years. And now they're using QuickBooks Online, and they're they're having trouble getting oriented in the software. It's definitely different. It's in the browser versus being downloaded to the computer. Excuse me. And the main difference is in the QuickBooks Desktop software, most of the transactions are going to be recorded right here in the check register. So oftentimes in QuickBooks Desktop, the bookkeeper, the accountant, the business owner is just going to open up that check register, and we're going to key in credit card information, transactions, checks that were written or cleared, or maybe we're writing checks directly from the QuickBooks software. That's a bit different than the then the bank transactions tab, where the software is doing a lot of the automation and sort of recognizing transactions. That's the main difference. So we can always just it's always okay to not work in the bank transactions tab for now if we're not confident in the bank transactions tab. And it's certainly always okay to just work right here in the check register. I find a lot of times that business owners, maybe some bookkeepers and accountants, aren't even aware the check register is here. They primarily stay in that bank transactions tab. So that's a helpful tip. So from the check register, we can select the plus create button here, and we'll see all the same forms, what QuickBooks calls forms, that we would have seen in the QuickBooks desktop software. For example, we can enter a check, we can enter a bill, we can pay a bill, we can enter an invoice, we can record payments and make deposits. I would say 90% of the time, those are the primary forms we're using in the check register. We can enter credit memos and vendor credits and those things as well, but all that information can be entered directly here. It'll record it right to the register. It'll update the balance, and once the transactions are entered, we can just select that button right there. That'll take us to the reconciliation screen, and we'll be able to reconcile the account. I did also want to mention in the check register, tab here, we do have that running balance, which would agree to the bank or credit card statement balance. So we can kind of keep an eye on that. At the end of the month, at the end of the period, we should see that ties out pretty closely, unless we have a lot of outstanding checks and deposits that are in transit. Here in this column of the check register, we'll see this column with the check mark at the very top. So this is going to have one of three options that can show here. It's either going to be blank, it's going to be C, it's going to be R. So if it's blank, that means the transaction has been entered here in the check register, or it's been synced from the bank transactions tab, from a bank account, from a credit card account. If it's C, that means that we've started reconciling and we've gone off and we've clicked the transaction. There's a check mark in the reconciliation screen for that transaction, which means we've compared it to the bank or credit card statement. It agrees. We add that check mark. And the difference between C and R is that for R, we've completed the reconciliation on the reconcile screen, and then the transaction will update here to an R. So once we reconcile for the period, for the month, most commonly for the month, we'll select complete reconciliation, and then here when we visit the transaction, the register, bank register, we'll see that the transaction has an R next to it. And then when we go back into the reconcile tab, we'll see that the transaction is no longer there. Once we add it to an R and we reconcile it, it takes it out of that reconciliation tab next time we go in there. And it's certainly okay to visit the bank register here. And we can, sometimes if we make a change to a transaction or delete and re-add a transaction, we can always update it, blank C, R. That's very helpful to know that step. So I did want to go back into the to the bank transactions tab now that we've initially reviewed the bank transactions tab, we've reviewed the bank register, we've sort of seen the comparison, what's in the bank transactions tab, what's in the bank register tab. I do want to revisit one additional item in the bank transactions tab. So again, we're just going to click on accounting, bank transactions, and I wanted to visit, we'll just take a look at this first transaction. This create a rule icon down here at the very bottom. So this create a rule icon is going to really give the software some additional specific information about what to do when it sees this specific bank detail line. So again, that bank detail line oftentimes is going to have the address of a business. So it might be Walmart, 123 Main Street in Ohio versus Walmart 123 Main Street in Texas, for example. It could be a McDonald's in California or a McDonald's in New York, for example. But on that bank detail line, there's going to be an address and a telephone number, and we can go in here and create a rule so that when the software sees that transaction, it'll know how to record the transaction, and that's really the automation that's in QuickBooks Online. So that's another of the main differences between the bank transactions tab and the in the check register. So the bank transactions tab is going to allow us to automate transactions, whereas the check register is not going to allow the automation. It'll allow us to enter transactions manually, just like we did in QuickBooks Desktop, but it's not going to have that automation. So this is where a lot of that data entry is going to take place, so that we don't have to worry about that step. And so here we'll just give it a name. The name of the vendor here is Books by Bessie. So oftentimes I'll just copy this down here. Sometimes there'll be a telephone number or an address in there. I'll just take that specific information out. But here it looks like it's a money in, it's a deposit, so it's money into the checking account. We can update that to different accounts. But primarily what we're going to focus on is this category right here. That's going to be our chart of accounts, assets, debits, liabilities, equity, expenses, those types of accounts. So for deposits, it's typically income. So we'll have the different income accounts here at the top, and we can select which income that we would like the transaction to go to. For example, I'm going to select, I'm going to actually add an account here. So I don't see book income. So I'm just going to add an account. Let's see, select category, add a new account. So I'm just going to call this book income, and it's going to go to just a standard income account. Yep, right there. Save it. Now we'll see that book income. I'll just go in here and type in book income. There's our book income. And then I'm going to select one additional item down here at the bottom. So if we select auto add, the next time a transaction comes in is synced to the QuickBooks Online software from that vendor or that customer. From that address, from that telephone number, we can either have the software, when it recognizes that, we can have the software auto add or just simply recognize it. Auto add's okay, that's fully automating it. If we don't do auto add, that's okay as well. If we select save, if we don't auto add it and then we select save, once we do that, we'll see that now that it's showing there's a rule, and we can just check it and accept it, or over here quickly add it. So if we see that'll take a task that may have taken 15 minutes, that'll take now 30 seconds to a minute to complete. So I did also want to take a look at the QuickBooks Online helpful web page that they have for setting up bank rules and categorizing online bank transactions in the bank transactions tab. So here I'm just going to play this video. It's going to be a very helpful video, and we'll just sort of watch through it.
Hi, this is Catherine from the QuickBooks team. You can use bank rules in QuickBooks Online to speed up the process of categorizing transactions. When you set up bank rules, QuickBooks enters categories and descriptions onto transactions for you. Bank rules can also enter transactions to your books automatically if you choose. Let's go through how to create, use, and edit bank rules. To start, select Rules, New Rule. First, enter a name for the rule. Next, select whether the rule is for money in or money out transactions and which bank and credit cards it applies to. Then, enter what you want QuickBooks to look for in the transactions you receive from your bank and credit cards. You can choose the description or bank text, which are details sent by the bank, and base it on text that either is or isn't there, or base it on the amount of the transaction.
So I typically find that's less common, basing it on sort of text that is or isn't there, or even the amount. Oftentimes it's going to be based on the name of the vendor, the company, the customer, the telephone number, the street address.
Any conditions as you need. If you already have some transactions awaiting your review, select Test Rule to see if what you've entered so far applies to any of them. This feature helps you confirm that you entered the correct conditions. If the rule does not apply to any currently unreviewed transactions, but should, adjust the conditions. Finally, you decide what QuickBooks does with downloaded transactions that meet the criteria you entered. Select the transaction type you want these transactions posted as. Then enter the category you want QuickBooks to apply to the transaction. QuickBooks can also split transactions between multiple categories by percentage or amount. The rule can also apply other info such as payee, customer project, and more. You may see different options depending on the company settings you've turned on. Adding info like the payee ensures you'll have accurate records and helps you to reconcile and run reports. If you turn on Auto Add, QuickBooks applies the rule to any downloaded transaction it applies to and posts it immediately.
I would say that's one of the most important aspects of the rules when we're adding rules. Will we auto add it? Will we or just not auto add it so that it recognizes it? So the next time you're going through the process, you can quickly click, accept very, very quickly. That works as well.
Remember to use this with caution, because if you leave it on, you won't get a chance to review transactions before QuickBooks adds them to your books. Select Save to create your rule. If you need to change a rule later, select Edit. Select the Action drop-down arrow, and you can copy, disable, or delete a rule. Disable the rule to stop it from applying to transactions temporarily until you re-enable it. Delete a rule to permanently remove it.
And that's helpful. Oftentimes, if a rule's been entered, has been being used, and maybe something changes, it's helpful to be able to go in there and make updates to the rule.
QuickBooks applies rules to transactions in the order they are in the Rules Center because QuickBooks can only apply one rule per transaction. Change the priority of your rules by selecting and dragging the grid. You can also export rules to use in a different company or import rules from another company. Go back to Bank Transactions. Whenever QuickBooks downloads a transaction, you can see if QuickBooks applied a rule to it. Select the Posted tab, and you'll see the transactions you and QuickBooks confirmed. You'll see AutoPost next to any transaction that QuickBooks automatically confirmed with a rule. Now you're ready to use bank rules to categorize and confirm your transaction.
And those bank rules are very helpful. It's a bit different than the AI or the artificial intelligence, which just since the end of July, QuickBooks Online has really been implementing. With the AI or the artificial intelligence, what I'm finding is that QuickBooks Online is creating the rule effectively. It's more than the automation. QuickBooks will create a rule, and it'll be a matter of just confirming whether or not that rule is going to be used.
In the Banking Center.